Rebecca, The Sound of Applause. Chapter 1, A Sabbath Surprise. Rebecca Rubin tugged at her wooden doll until the top and bottom pulled apart to reveal a smaller doll nesting inside. There were 7 painted dolls in all, each one tucked inside the next. They reminded Rebecca of her family, which numbered exactly 7. The dolls had belonged to Mama when she was growing up in Russia, before Rebecca was born. But now the Russian dolls were Rebecca's treasures. She lined them up along the parlor windowsill, behind the sheer curtains. "Ladies and gentlemen, your attention, please," said Rebecca to her imaginary audience. Slowly she drew back the curtains and wiggled the doll she thought of as Mother to the front of the windowsill stage. "It's almost sundown," Rebecca said in a no-nonsense Mama voice. "I hope you've all had your baths." She moved the Mama closer to one of the smaller dolls. "Becky, dear," she said sweetly, "you are so grown up now. Tonight you may light the candles." Rebecca pretended 2 of the bigger dolls were her older sisters. She moved them to face Mama and squawked in a high voice, "She's not old enough! She's practically a baby!" The 2 big sister dolls butted into the little Becky doll, and it wobbled close to the edge of the windowsill. Rebecca pushed the Papa doll until it stood in front of the others. "Well, curl my mustache," she said in a deep voice. "Becky's not a baby anymore. She knows the Hebrew blessing perfectly. She is certainly old enough to light the candles tonight." Before Rebecca could make her brother doll speak, Mama's very real voice broke into her performance. "Becky, you'll have to put the dolls away," she called from the kitchen. "It's time to set the table." "Phooey," Rebecca said under her breath. She let the curtains fall across her dolls and turned back to the parlor. Extra leaves had been placed in the table to make room for everyone, and Rebecca smoothed the large white tablecloth. She set out 2 silver candlesticks and placed 1 white candle in each. Every Friday, Mama cooked and cleaned all day to prepare for the Sabbath. Bubby, Rebecca's grandmother, came down from her apartment upstairs to help cook. Before the sun set, the family came together for a special dinner. Friday night was Rebecca's favorite time of the week. "But Mama should let me do something more important than just setting the table," she thought, as she lifted a tall stack of Mama's best dishes from the sideboard. Mama looked in from the kitchen. "Don't carry too many plates at once," she cautioned, "and we need 1 extra tonight." "Who's coming?" Rebecca asked, adding a plate to the stack. Through the doorway she could see Bubby frying fish in a black iron pan. Mama and Bubby glanced at each other, but Mama did not answer Rebecca's question. That made Rebecca even more curious to know who would be sharing their Sabbath dinner. "Who is it, Mama?" Mama stirred sizzling potatoes and onions as she answered, "My cousin, Moishe." Now Rebecca nearly did drop the plates. "The actor?" she asked. She had overheard her parents talking about Moshe before, but she had never met him. He usually traveled around the country, acting in vaudeville shows, but other times he was out of work and needed to borrow money from Papa. Rebecca had always wondered what an actor was like in real life when he wasn't on stage. Tonight she would find out. Rebecca took special care setting the table. She folded the linen napkins so that the crocheted edges were lined up neatly. If a real actor was coming to dinner, she wanted everything to be perfect. "Sadie, Sophie," Bubby called. A few strands of gray hair slipped from her neat bun and framed her round face. She opened the oven door and slid out 2 braided loaves of challah bread. Bubby only made challah for Friday nights and holidays. Each loaf needed 2 eggs, and eggs were expensive. Rebecca's twin sisters hurried in wearing matching dresses. Sadie's eyes sparkled, and she looked eager to help. Sophie followed behind her. "Come check if challah is done," Bubby instructed them. "But the loaves are so hot," Sophie complained. She pulled away from the open oven. Sadie wasn't timid at all. She rapped 2 fingers against the shiny crust. A hollow sound echoed back. "Done," Sadie announced. "Why doesn't Bubby ever ask me to check the bread?" Rebecca wondered. "Bubby treats me like a little child." She pushed back past her sisters. "I can do it too," she said. "So give it a tap," Bubby told her. "When dough is done, bread sounds empty." As Rebecca knocked on the bread with her knuckles, her older brother Victor sneaked up and rapped on her head. "Done," he teased. The twins giggled. Rebecca tried to swat Victor's arm, but before she could catch him, a rhythmic knock sounded at the kitchen door. Everyone turned to stare as it creaked open. A tall young man wearing a jaunty straw hat and holding a polished cane poked his head into the room. "Moshi!" Mama exclaimed. The man put his finger to his lips, signaling everyone to be quiet, and began sprinkling something in the doorway. Rebecca couldn't see anything in his hand. Her little brother Benny squatted down. He looked at the floor and then up at Moshi. "What are you putting on this clean floor?" Bubby cried. Moshi peered into the hallway and looked around nervously. Then he made more frantic sprinkling motions. Finally he spoke. "It's lion powder," he said solemnly. Rebecca frowned. "What in the world is that?" "Why, you don't know?" Moshi asked. "It keeps the lions away." Benny's eyes grew wide. "Lions?" Sadie sniffed. "That's ridiculous. There aren't any lions around here." "You see how well it works?" Moshi announced. Benny heaved a sigh of relief. Sadie and Sophie shook their heads at the silly joke, and Rebecca burst out laughing. Moshi flashed a gleaming smile. "At least one person in this audience likes my joke," he said. "If you make them laugh, your audience will love you." He winked at Rebecca. "Remember that." Rebecca had never imagined that Mama's cousin would be so exciting. He even looked interesting with his bright dark eyes and cane draped over his arm. "Come in and close the door, Moshi," Mama said. "Excuse me, but it's no more Moshi Sherishevsky," her cousin said. "I am Max Shepard, if you please." He gave a low bow, sweeping his hat off his head. "An American name for an American actor." "America," Bubby grumbled. "Always changing with the names. You don't change a name like a dirty shirt." Max didn't argue. "You must be little Becky," he said, giving Rebecca his full attention. "You were toddling around like a wind-up doll the last time I saw you. Now you're a young lady." Rebecca beamed. Visitors never talked to her first when they met the family. They always fussed over Sadie and Sophie because they thought twins were so remarkable. If only they knew how left out Rebecca felt, being their younger sister. Max turned to Benny. "And you weren't even born. Now you're old enough to grow buttons." "Buttons don't grow," Benny said. Max pulled something from Benny's ear. "This sure looks like a button to me." Benny's eyes grew wide as Max dropped a shiny brown button into his hand. Rebecca chuckled. How did Max do that? "And this must be the bar mitzvah boy," Max exclaimed, shaking Victor's hand. "Your mother tells me you're almost 13 now and studying hard for your bar mitzvah." He dropped his voice lower, as if sharing a secret. "But I hear sneaking out to play baseball is a lot more fun than studying Hebrew." Victor grinned. "Good Shabbos," Rebecca's grandfather called as he and Papa came in. Grandpa and Bubby often mixed Yiddish words with their English. Yiddish was the language most Jewish immigrants in the neighborhood spoke. Rebecca could speak it too, and she knew Shabbos meant Sabbath. Papa handed Mama a penny bouquet of flowers as he did every Friday. "Almost as pretty as you," he smiled. Mama blushed at the compliment as she hung her apron on a nail by the stove. "Good evening, Moshi," Papa said, shaking hands. "Excuse me, but that's Max," Bubby corrected him. "There's no more Moshi." Max grinned. "Moshi, Max, what's the difference?" "You can call me anything as long as you don't call me late for dinner." Rebecca thought Max was funny. He was nothing like Papa, who was usually so serious. "Such a busy day at the shoe store," Grandpa said, "but now it's Shabbos, and time to rest." Papa took the pushki, the tin charity box, from the kitchen shelf. Every Friday night he put in his loose change. When the box was full, Papa brought the money to the synagogue. The congregation used the funds they collected to help new immigrants. Papa dropped in the coins from his pocket and they clanged to the bottom. Grandpa added some change. "We must always help those who are less fortunate," he said. He held the box out to Max, but just at that moment Max stepped into a parlor and started tickling Benny until the boy was screaming with laughter. "Don't make him wild," Mama scolded. "Come, it's time to light the candles." Benny dashed to Papa and pulled at his sleeve. "My turn! My turn!" Papa lifted Benny in the air and Benny squealed with delight. "Women light the Shabbos candles," Papa said. "No fair," Benny whined. "Can I light them tonight?" Rebecca begged. "I know the prayer by heart." "You heard Papa," Sadie said. "It's for the women in the family." Rebecca frowned. This was just like her windowsill play. "The twins will light the candles," Mama said firmly. "After all, they're 14. "And not married yet?" Max joked. "Time to call the matchmaker." The twins put their hands over their mouths to stifle their giggles. Rebecca went to the windowsill and poked the big sister dolls so hard they rocked a little. "When will I get to light the candles?" she muttered. "The twins get to do everything." "Stop pouting and help," Bubby ordered. She set a soup tureen on the sideboard and ladled golden chicken soup into bowls. Rebecca served Max first. He closed his eyes and breathed deeply as if smelling a sweet perfume. The family waited while Bubby hung her apron in the kitchen. Then she sat down and straightened the lacquer pen she often wore. It was a keepsake she had brought with her from Russia. Rebecca had always loved the picture of the leaping hare that was painted on the pen's shiny black background. The picture was from a Russian folk tale called Clever Karina. Sadie and Sophie stood before the silver candlesticks. Everyone watched as they lit the white candles with a long wooden match. Then they closed their eyes and recited the Hebrew prayer together, giving thanks for the Sabbath, a day of rest and peace. The candles flickered, lighting up the twins' face with a golden glow. "Beautiful," Max murmured. The grown-ups nodded approvingly, and Rebecca felt a bubble of envy grow in her chest. She was old enough to do more than just set the table. Victor raised a special cup of Sabbath wine and recited the Hebrew blessing. Grandpa corrected his pronunciation, and Rebecca felt secretly pleased. Next, Mama removed the delicately embroidered challah cover from the warm bread. She held up the 2 loaves, and the whole family gave thanks for their food. Rebecca said the prayer loudly so everyone would know she didn't make mistakes. Rebecca sipped her steaming soup with Mama's homemade noodles. She loved the foods that made Friday night special, but tonight she wasn't thinking about the dinner. An idea was flickering in her mind, forming a glow as bright as the Sabbath candles.